Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wholehearted Loving. I'm Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Georgiana.
Today, we're going to be talking about the 5-minute journal and ways to not shame ourselves when we want to do something, but maybe we have not done it. You can find self-reflection prompts for this episode and every episode on our Instagram at Wholehearted Loving. And before we get into it, we will do a body-based self-connection practice so we can connect with ourselves before we connect with each other and this podcast.
What will the practice be?
That's a good question. We've just been looking and meaning making. Maybe it can be something more like inward and feely.
Oh, okay. Let's go inward and feely. Let's go with, as always, maybe you want to bring some outer awareness to the outer part of the body, the external, So I feel my hands on my legs. And then we're going to go a little internal. And, I felt something, but that was external. I felt something like itchy on my forehead. But I had that excited bit because it excites me now to know that I'm aware of these things and I catch them in the moment. Okay, so going internal, noticing a sensation, perhaps it's the most obvious one that you can notice. And once you notice it, can you be with it for a full breath?
Gas.
Where do you notice your gas? Can you be with your gas? Right. And let's go with another one that seems easier to find, a little bit more obvious. Just practice being with that for a moment. And then we'll shift gears a little. And this is more like a little scavenger hunt or something. We're going to see if we can notice an inner body sensation that's much more subtle, that we need to pay more attention to notice it. And see if there's a willingness to just be with that for a breath. And then just letting your body sit, be, stand, lay in whatever way feels good. Notice how that was.
It's amazing how many things my body is doing at any given time that I'm paying no attention to at all. Yeah.
What did you notice in that practice?
The first thing I noticed was the inside of my mouth, my tongue against my palate. And then I noticed the feeling of the band of my bra around my chest. First I noticed the gas.
Are we just going to ignore that and pretend it didn't happen?
No, it happened. And it was not subtle. For me, my experience of it was not subtle at all. You wouldn't have been aware of it unless I was not
aware of your gas situation.
It's amazing how that works. Something can be feeling so impactful for us, and those around us have no idea it's even going on.
Well, I think it's very interesting about gas because that can be true, right? Have you ever had I felt so bloated where you're so uncomfortable, but no one would know.
No one would know.
And unless you say something. But it reminds me of how we might be suffering and no one would know unless you let someone know because there's all sorts of internal body sensations that don't feel good, that feel painful and hard to be with. And do you have a practice of letting anyone know, or do you put on the facade that everything's great?
Yeah.
Or there's also this other version of it is, are you super excited and you feel that excitement on the inside, but there's old stories and beliefs that tell you you shouldn't show that on the outside?
Totally.
Right.
Another variation of this is like frustration and irritation that we might express instead of just expressing what's going on. Something that's been happening for me a lot in the last few weeks. I've been house renovations and I've been leaving the house really early to not have to deal with the noises and the mess. And by the time I come home, I often really, really have to pee. And so my intention is just to run inside and go to the bathroom. But often my housemates will be somewhere and they'll be like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" And if I didn't have the wherewithal to say, "I would love to answer that question, but I really have to go pee. Just a moment, please," I might instead be like rushing through it or feeling irritated or acting irritated. And that's just such a simple, optional unpleasantness to avoid by expressing.
I think a few years ago, more than a few years ago, I decided to shift into a new pattern of I am going to pee whenever I need it in the initial moments of noticing it. And that might sound like a weird thing. And I don't know if it's more common in women or what, but like let me wait till later. Let me just get this thing done. Or I don't want to interrupt this person or, whatever. And I said, no, like my personal comfort matters. Go now.
Yeah.
Pause whatever you're doing.
It has a rolling impact, right? Because we think of it just as being our personal discomfort, but actually it's making us rush through whatever we're doing. Our attention is diverted in some way that takes us out of the present and has actually quite an effect.
Yeah, and I think symbolically, and I'm sure physiologically, we're giving the message to our body, you don't matter that much.
Totally.
I'm not. You can't count on me to take care of you. You're going to give me signals and I'm going to ignore them.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't feel that that's going to lead to good things over time.
No, whether we want it to or not, it leads to some degree of dissociation and inability to be with and be present.
Mm-hmm. So I practice that now. I wanted to say something. When you talked about needing to go pee, it occurred to me to share this. So I used to find that when people would say, "Notice how you feel inside," I would be like, "Shut up."
Whatever.
One, I don't know what you're talking about. And that was one version of time. And like one season of my life was I didn't even know what that meant, that question.
Yeah.
And then the other season of my life was I don't want to. It feels gross. I don't want to know what's happening in there. Or there's another season where it was maybe intellectually I knew what they were talking about, but practically speaking, I'm like, I feel nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. And that's so common. We hear that a lot from people. I feel nothing, or I'm too scared to feel and notice and be curious about it. And I always like baby steps. And so most people are open to like, can you just give your hands a squeeze? Can you feel your hand touching your hand? Or can you feel when you smush your foot into the floor? They're like, yeah, I can feel that. Great. So you do have body awareness. And most people that I've talked to who've struggled bringing presence to inner body sensation are more comfortable bringing awareness to outer body sensation first. And I always say, well, then that's your gateway. Start with that. Don't force yourself to go to inner body sensation if you're not ready yet. Right. And then the other thing is, lots of us don't realize that there are certain inner body sensations that you're probably noticing that don't freak you out as much as some others, which is, when do you need to go pee? When do you need to go to the bathroom? When are you thirsty? When are you hungry? And like, unless there's a medical reason for not being able to notice those things, right? Or if you're highly dissociated, which I don't think the average person is that disconnected, you're going to feel something happening in your body, right? Just start paying attention to those. sensations? Can you be with that feeling of when I need to go pee, just pay attention to it for 3 breaths. Get familiar with, oh, it feels like that. Right?
Good advice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the bodily sensations that we often seek to avoid is whatever sensations arise for us in relation to shame and shoulds, which often come up when we set ourselves a goal, for example, journaling every day or doing meditation every day or exercising every day, and then we find ourselves not doing it. And for some people, that might inspire them to do it. For others, it won't. Or one day it might and one day it won't. But, G, you've got this 5-minute journal that you picked up again today. And this is how this came up for you. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So there's many things that I do and have done over the course of years that are helpful for my emotional and mental well-being. And I'm someone who gets into something, gets excited about it, and then easily forgets about it because some other thing came around, or I don't know, just forgot or don't feel like it, whatever. At the same time, there's this inner knowing still somewhere in me of it would be good to do that. Not really, I should do that. It may be a little bit, but like aside from the I shoulds, it actually would be good. I would feel better in my day if I did that thing. So one of the things is to use my 5-minute journal. If you don't know what it is, you can Google it. They even have, I think, a sample page that you can print off if you want to give it a try before you buy it, if you wanted to buy it. But what I love about this is it asks you a few questions for each morning and the same questions. It's the same questions every day. The morning questions are the same. There's 3 sections. And then the evening section, there's 2 sections or 2 parts. And what I like about it is it has like just a date, like a line where you could put in the date. And this is what happened today. Actually, before I'll rewind. This whole week, I've been like just being more intentional and aware of habits that help me feel good about my day and my life. And it's been stirring around in my mind. Oh, go back to the 5-minute journal. That was a good time in life. By good time in my life, it meant that was actually a really crappy time in my life in terms of what was happening in my life. And that was something that was helpful at that time in my life. So I thought, let's maybe bring that back. Well, the whole week went by, I didn't bring it back. Anyways, today was the day that I brought it back. So I sat at the table and I opened it up and to a blank page, and I got to put today's date in. And just out of curiosity, I was like, let me flip to the previous page and see the date on that entry. It was, and it'll be a different day when you listen to this recording, but today is July 4th, 2024. The date on the last page was not last week. It wasn't 3 months ago. It wasn't even a year ago. It was September 25th, 2022. So I have gone like a year and a half more, almost 2 years, not using the 5-minute journal. My old self would have been like, what the heck is wrong with you? Like, you should have been doing this for 2 years. Why haven't you been doing it? Today, my thoughts were, how awesome that I started again today. And, it's taken work and practice to be able to have thoughts like that, but I thought that was a really sweet moment. If I look back, and I'm going to be honest with you, let me tell you when I started the 5-minute journal.
Great.
Oh my gosh, this is hilarious. So this is like one journal. It's not that thick. Maybe most people get through it in, I don't know if it's meant to be like for a year if you do it every day. But anyways, let me tell you the first date, the first entry.
And how far into it are you? Like, it's like maybe a third?
I am about a third.
Yeah.
Like, that might be generous.
Huh?
Maybe like just over a quarter. I don't know. The first entry is from February 7th, 2015.
Nice.
Yes.
Good span. You're 9 years in.
Yes, I'm 9 years in. And like when I look at it, I'm like, oh, that lasted for about, a week. And then there was a 3-month break. No, it was a year break. Like it's just, there's been lots of breaks.
It's
And
funny, as you started that sentence, that lasted for, and you were looking for the timeline, and my brain said exactly as long as it needed to.
yeah, that's true. It lasted as long as it needed to at that time. And today was the time to come back to it. What I love about it too is I noticed that some days I was able to remember or able to choose to do it in the morning and at night. And other days, only the morning is filled out. And so what? Who cares?
Yeah.
And my old self might have been like, well, what a waste. Like, that's not the whole experience. You're not doing it right. And I'm like, well, reflecting on my morning is better than not reflecting on anything. Great.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
And I remember like little tricks, helpful things I tried to do was when I started noticing I don't tend to do it at night. I remember like, how can I make this easier for me to do at night? So I started putting it on my pillow.
Right. You told me that. Yeah.
So,
Smart.
still like I only did it for as long as I needed it because we're only a third way through and we're almost like, we're going to be a decade in soon.
Life hacks by G. Like yeah.
So, I wanted to share maybe some of the reflection questions that are in this journal and why I find them helpful. But I think maybe before we go into that, I wanted to talk about this really common thing that we hear about all the time. Working with people, we'll do a body connection practice and they'll be like, oh, that felt so good. I haven't been doing it lately. Or, we'll just be talking about other things like, oh, I feel so good when I take a walk every day and I haven't done it in 6 months. And it always comes with a flavor of like shame and should and what's wrong with me. And see, I always drop every good habit and nothing really ever changes or sticks. And those moments, I feel so sad because I feel like they could be so different. And we share with people a different way, a different perspective of looking at this. And I thought it might be nice to share it here.
Yeah. It's funny, even as you say it, so you said that it made you sad. And for me, it makes me happy because when they say that, I'm like, oh, great. It sounds like you know what you want to do. You've remembered, Well,
that's the thing is like, what a nice thought you could be having instead.
Yeah.
Right?
And so much more impactful too. The amount of shoulds that I used to have and the amount of shame I used to have didn't really serve me in any way. It just
didn't?
Shameful. It really, really did not. What ended up serving me was a bit of radical honesty, which was acknowledging that I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing, more or less, broadly speaking. We're always doing what we want to be doing. And the moment those bits of, oh, but I want this and I want that, instead of it being framed like I should be doing this, I should be doing that, it's just as simple as using the word want. I want to do that. Okay, great. Well, if that's what you want, then you will eventually find yourself doing that.
Yeah. And so noticing, oh, I wish I was doing it more frequently. Well, then how about just do it right now and start again?
Do it for 1 minute right now.
Start again, right?
Yeah.
And I've had sessions with clients where they said, I've like dropped that push-up habit again. And it felt so good, it helped me get in my body. And I was like, okay, are you open to doing them now? And then they look at me funny for a moment. And they're like, okay, yeah, why not?
I could do that.
So they like get down on the ground, like do their 5 or 15 push-ups. And then we chat about like, how did it feel? How does it feel now? And then we acknowledge you just started a pattern again.
Yeah.
And like, we could spend session talking about it and planning for it and when and like what are the bottlenecks to it all happening. And I think it's even more powerful to just pair. The thought came up that I wish I did this, and so let's do it now.
Let's do
and
it.
like
Now.
just shorten that time in between noticing a desire and actually executing on it. Like that was a muscle I really had to grow because I was so good at daydreaming about all the things that I wanted to do, that I would do one day, that would feel good to do, that would be good for me to do. And I would just stay in the thinking about it place.
Well, and also because it wouldn't have been a baby step at that point. It would have been like, let me just do the one thing right now for 1 minute. It would have been like, I'm going to begin a daily habit that I will do 5 minutes of every day in perpetuity. And that is an overwhelming sensation.
And for me, it wouldn't have been 5. 5 would have felt like a waste of time.
Yes,
like
an hour.
45 minutes, an hour, right? At least. Right. And so to be able to shorten the length of time between noticing a desire and executing on it, and to be able to shrink the action to something that's like, let's do it for a minute or let's do 3, right?
Yeah.
Those two things really help me. So the different perspective that we like to share with people is like, I want you to imagine, like I have 2 good memories of this. One is as a kid, and even now it happens, like going through the couch cushions and finding money. And like every time it's happened, whether it's $2 or $5, there's a moment in my body that I feel excited. Like, cool, I found $2. Or wow, I found $5. And, you know, I've asked people, what if we took that approach of every time you notice that you have forgotten to do or gotten out of the habit of doing this thing that once felt good to do or once was helpful to do, that we meet it with that same kind of excitement, like you just found money in the couch.
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, I just remember that tool I used to use all the time, that journal thing.
Great.
Let's do it today. Amazing.
Let me illustrate the difference here for a moment, because I think this is an impactful one. I think everybody, when they find $5 in the couch, they all just say only yay or some variation of yay. But you could go, oh gosh, I'm so irresponsible for having lost that money. Or maybe it's someone else's money and I should have returned it to them. And gosh, this $5 can have been here for months. I could have been having it in a high interest savings account, making interest for me.
Or why isn't it $20?
Right? None of those thoughts occur, right? Optional suffering.
Mm-hmm. It's mostly met with excitement. I found $5. Yay. Right? So what if it was, I remembered the thing. I can do it today. Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I find that is so much more pleasant, because the wild thing is these tools and helpful things are meant to help us feel better. And yet here we are adding a big dose of shame and should because we forgot to do it for a while, right? Or we chose not to do it for a while.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's that. And everyone's found that to be a pleasant way to think about it. Like, oh yeah, that feels much better.
So much better.
Is it fun to go through these questions and chat a little bit about them?
Oh, sure. Yeah, they've got prompts, hey?
Yeah. So the morning it always begins with a quote. The page today was "No one ever achieved greatness by playing it safe" by Harry Gray. I don't know who that is. Do you know who that is?
Nope.
Anyways. So the first prompts are, I am grateful for, and it has 3 lines for that. And maybe one day we'll do a different episode for gratitude, but of like how I find doing like a juicy gratitude, an embodied gratitude moment. But for now, just talk about like why it's helpful. Like today I wrote, I'm grateful for the sunlight out the window because it makes me smile. And I challenge myself to choose things I don't choose all the time, choose new things, because I remember like back in the day, being grateful for things, doing your gratitude journal, writing down something you're grateful for. I'm grateful I have a roof over my head. I'm grateful that I have food. Or like,
Yeah.
every time it's the same things. I'm grateful I have a good friend, which is, I am grateful. But like, it's just so much more expansive. And I think it grows different muscles to look further, look beyond what are the typical things that people say they're grateful for.
Look deeper. One of my favorite comedians is Theo Vaughn, because he says things that are quite unexpected. And sometimes he'll run through his gratitude list and it'll be like, man, I'm grateful for people who weave silk into beautiful pillows. And, I'm grateful for things that you would not expect that are so true. I'm noticing the silky pillow behind you and thinking that's a thing, you might go, oh, I'm grateful for soft pillows, but it's like someone made that silk, man. I'm grateful for the silkworms that give their silk and the silkworm farmers that produce it. And there's a lot to be grateful for.
There's a lot, right? When we look for that. So noticing whether you're open to look for different things that you're grateful for. What would make today great? I like that question. I like it because or at least the way I answer it, is it reminds me I have agency and power. Right? I'm not saying, hey, what would make today great is if Stephanie is nice to me. I guess you could write that down, but to me, it's asking me to look at what is something I could prioritize or do, or a mindset I could take into the day that helps today be a better, more pleasant day. And then it gives me things to focus on for the day. And it has 3 options. And then the one after that is, and I like that it says, what would make today great and not what would make today okay or good.
Yeah, or better. Yeah.
Or better. And not that those words are not helpful, but I often don't live on my own. I don't live in thinking about greatness. Right? Some people do, or some people have really grown that muscle to be like, what would make today great? So I like it because it expands me out of just what would be nice today.
Yeah.
Daily affirmations. And it just says, I am. And I was just curious what I've written over time. Oh, so sweet. Right? Instead of you remember last episode, we were talking about I am not good at taking care of plants and I'm not good at taking care of things. Those are the old programming things. And here it says, I am opening to all that's possible. I am in charge of the day and I create the energy. Right? I am strong and capable. I am on just the right path and resourced. Those are so much better feeling thoughts and identities to own and live into.
Would you be open to going back to day 1 and seeing what I ams were there? Is it I am on every day?
Yeah, there's an I am. Yeah. On day 1, February 7th, 2015, that was 3 months before I got separated. It's interesting.
Damn. Juicy.
Yeah. I am able to create a life I'm excited about.
That's pretty good.
And I am grateful for was I'm grateful for my courage to reach out for support.
Oh, yeah.
And another one I'm grateful for, and it was a particular friend who loves me enough to challenge me, yet can nurture and inspire me at the same time.
Oh.
What would make today great? A nap.
Simple, effective.
Simple. Yeah, totally. So that's the morning piece of the journal.
Right.
Then there's a nighttime piece of the journal, which is 3 amazing things that happened today.
Mm.
And I remember always having a really good feeling about reflecting on that.
Mm.
And so I'm excited to reflect on that. Even as I sit, I'm like, oh, but so many things that were good already happened today. I wonder which ones I'll choose. And I wonder which ones will jump out at me tonight when I reflect.
Nice.
And then I really like this one too. How could I have made today better? So but like for me, it doesn't have a shaming quality to it.
Right.
But it has what you said earlier. Did you say something about honesty, radical honesty?
Yeah.
Like growing the muscle of radical honesty without shame, right? Radical honesty with compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And stepping into the belief that I have agency over my life. I can choose what I do or don't do. And so how could I have made today better? I'm curious what I've said in the past. Oh, how could I have made today better? Work out earlier.
Mm.
How could I have made today better? Be more compassionate to myself. How could I have made today better? Less pizza, LOL.
That's a good tip. Fine balance there. So this is reminding me, it's now been like over a year. It's been a while since we created our self-compassionate body-based toolkit. But we've got a variation of this in there, a morning and evening journal with reflection questions and body noticing prompts. I think it was designed to help us start noticing sensations and emotions and feelings, and a compassionate reflection on the day and planning for the next day.
Yeah. So many ways, so many tools and options. Based on past pattern, I'll probably do this for a while. It'll do its job for a bit. And then maybe I'll be pulled to something else. So if you're like me, see if you're willing to give yourself permission to just be moving in the direction that feels supportive. So like Steph's mentioning other journal prompts that are in our program. There's the 5-minute journal. There's like a gazillion journal prompts you could use from the internet, you know. There's also ways to just reflect on your day without any prompts. There's so many ways to reflect and, show gratitude, show compassion to yourself. Are you willing to allow yourself to have like many roads that lead to that place that matters to you, which is for me, growing a more self-compassionate voice, reminding myself I have agency over my life, right? Being able to bring presence to the things that are good. That's what it's all about. How you do that, what method you use, doesn't really matter.
Yeah. I love it. Good advice.
Okay.
Anything else you want to say on this?
I don't think so. I'm excited. My book has lasted me a decade, like value for money.
Yeah, that's right. Very good. Okay,
That's
well.
such a better feeling thought than I'm so crappy at keeping up my habits.
Definitely. Much better. Well, I hope everyone at home can enjoy some more compassionate feeling thoughts of this nature as well. All right. Well, as always, please do like, follow, and subscribe. And if anything we've said here today has been helpful for you, please share it with somebody that you care about. And we'll see you next week.
Yes, and we didn't do a body practice, so smush your feet into the ground.
Oh, smush them. Smush the feet into the ground. I don't want to rush through that now because I've missed the mark. So I'm going to take a proper moment to smush my feet. I've got one hand so my leg is up on this ottoman. I've got one hand smushing into my foot with my fingers between my toes. And I've got one foot smushing into this thick rug on the floor.
Neat. I went from smushing to doing this sort of weird thing of like my desk has like the table leg and I'm sort of grabbing the table leg with my big toe and my second toe. I don't know. Just happen. Just following the body's impulse. But this is a great reminder of like, we forgot to do our usual body connection practice and just smush the toes. Like, it doesn't have to be that well thought out. It doesn't have to be some grand thing. Like, there's simple things you can do to bring more connection awareness to your body. Don't have to make it so hard for yourself.
Yeah. Sweet. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.